Hello, this is Jenny from Jenny's Real Talk on the Block on LA Talk Radio Channel 1 and iHeartRadio. We are here at the 5-Star Bar in downtown Los Angeles for another concert, but we are here, more importantly, for an interview with the amazing, incredible Dr. Richard M Fleming. Let's talk a little bit about your scientific research and your discovery and all of the things that you're trying to do, for the industry with the diet and everything else. Can you tell us a little bit more about the product that you're working on?
Yeah, well, there's a patent actually that took about 18 years to develop. That was the end result of looking at a lot of problems that we have in medicine, reasons why people aren't finding disease or really missing the cause of disease. And I sat down about 18, 19 years ago and was looking at how we were doing the tests and realized that we were doing a lot of tests that were just visual tests. We'll look at it and make a decision. Do you have heart disease or do you have breast cancer or don't you? And that's really good unless you're the person who's really worried about having the disease, because there's a lot of mistakes that are made that way. And it's just visual interpretation, and a lot of us kind of see what we think we're going to see, and physicians are no different than that. So about 18, 19 years ago, I sat down to try to figure out if we could actually measure what we were looking for, put a yardstick, if you will, to it. And it turned out that once we get past the fact that the equipment wasn't calibrated, it was just every machine was measuring differently. And once we got past the fact that some of the big pharmaceutical companies were misrepresenting the drugs, and that was allowing them to sell twice as many drugs for every study. Once we got past all of that and then started applying what we do in cardiology to also looking for cancer, we discovered that we're actually able to take advantage of differences in tissue, cancer versus inflammation versus normal. And when we do that, we can then measure those differences. So we developed a test called FMTBDM-BEST. It's a long name. So
can you tell people what that actually stands for so that they'll know? I know it's an anagram, but
yeah. Actually, it stands for the Fleming Method for Tissue and Vascular Differentiation, Metabolism using Same-State Singular Sequential Quantification Comparisons.
I could see why you abbreviated that.
Right, that's why we call it FMTBD-M. And then BEST is Breast Enhanced Scintigraphy Test, and that's the first cancer test. So we've looked at over 1,000 women and about 10 men. We've looked at people that have dense breasts. We've looked at women with breast implants. We've looked at women who've had surgery, mastectomy, because they had cancer or because they had a breast cancer gene and wanted to reduce the risk or remove the risk of cancer, which FYI does not remove your risk of cancer.
Okay.
If doing that removed the risk of cancer, every woman who's had a mastectomy would never have to go back in to see her doctor. But we do, right?
Very true. Yeah.
So we've looked at it with women who've had chemotherapy and radiation, who've done dietary things to make decisions to try and improve their health. And then we've been able to measure that. And the beautiful thing is that instead of just having a yes-no, like a light switch on and off, it's more of a rheostat in that we can see where you lie on one end or the other. And because it's a valued number, we can then see how rapidly things are changing, and we can compare over time. So if you chose not to do anything and you came back to have a study done in 6 months or a year or 2 years, you could see actually how much change had happened and how rapidly. It also means that we can, for the first time, give you a treatment and see if the treatment works right away, which is going to save time, money, and lives. So that's kind of the test in a nutshell.
Now, does it just test for the one type of cancer, for the breast, or are you looking at other ways, to test other types of cancer? The reason I ask that is my mother passed away from cervical cancer. Are there other ways, like you have a test that can test like all different types of cancer, or is it just one specific mode or model right now?
Right. So the first model that we came up with was breast, and that's why I came up with the acronym BEST. But that will be the same name for every type of cancer because it does work for every solid cancer that's out there. Okay. Yeah. In fact, what this will eventually lead to is the ability to do a single test for the whole body, looking at heart disease, and for the whole body's cancer range all at once. That's the test that will be out. That'll be out in about 5 years. But right now we're focusing primarily on heart disease and breast cancer because those are the number 1 and 2 killers of women. And the number 1 killer of men, and darn near close number 2 killer of men. So that really gets the most people right up front.
Right. And now, how long have you been practicing medicine, and what types of medicine and what types of degrees do you carry? I know this is a question, but I know you studied genetics. You studied cardiology and some things like that, and I know law. But as far as it pertains to medicine,
So, as it pertains to medicine, so for medical school, I actually did a 5-year program. I did a 4 years plus of research here, and that was on sodium or salt and high blood pressure that I get a chance to do. Very interesting research to me. Allowed us to sort out who needs what type of medicines for high blood pressure. And then I did my internship year. Then I did 2 years of residency. Those are all in internal medicine.
Wow.
Then I did 3 years of cardiology fellowship training and 1 year of antimatter training. So these isotopes, these drugs that we use for these tests, I actually was sitting at the right place at the right time at the University of Houston when those came through the pipelines, and so I wrote some of the very first papers on those.
Nice.
And then I was one of only 3. There's a lot of people who do what's called PET imaging, positive emission tomography.
Yeah.
There's only 3 of us that are in the
I know
world
about
that
PET
are
scans.
that are actually certified.
Wow, that's
Everybody
amazing.
else kind of does it, but hasn't had a certification. So Yoshida from Japan, Schneider from Switzerland,
and yourself. And you yourself.
And me myself, right? Me myself and I. So I have that as well. So that's antimatter imaging, PET imaging, and then I have a nuclear cardiologist board certified in nuclear cardiology.
That's big.
And I always tell people that a nuclear cardiologist is a cardiologist that was stupid enough to take more training. So I have that.
And I know you have psychology as well. Now, I mean, I understand, like, if you're going to be a real doctor, like, to really work with a lot of different types of people, especially for something like that, you need to know how people are as a whole, not just their physical, but their mental as well, because they both go hand in hand. If someone is sick mentally, it's going to eventually make them sick physically. Do you feel that the psychology was a good piece to go with your other studies so that you could understand people as a whole?
Yeah, I think it was very important. In fact, I got the master's degree in psychology at the same university I did my undergraduate studies at, and got trained by somebody from Harvard University, Dr. Harrington, and we did a lot of genetics research. But it also gave me a unique aspect that was different for a physician because Bandura conditioning is a special type of psychology conditioning.
I've heard of
and that is what has actually allowed me to do the dietary studies. One of the things in the diet studies that I've looked at is I won't let people drop out of studies.
Right.
I don't think you can include that in good conscience and say, oh gosh, well they just dropped out, so we won't include them. Well, if they dropped out, that's a bad outcome.
Oh yeah, it skews the numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't do that.
And so Bandura really came up with a method from the University of Iowa where he said, look, what you need to do is you talk to the person, and it doesn't matter whether it's diet or medication or exercise or anything else. You talk to the person and make it very clear to them up front what all the details are, and then you make them their own therapist, so that when people have been enrolled in those studies that I've done with diet, they routinely will come in and they don't drop out. That's the agreed to. You're stuck in the program.
Right.
If you do lousy, if you change your diet, whatever it is, that's the outcome.
Yeah.
Because that's in fact the outcome.
Right.
But they frequently will come in and go, well, I made this mistake, and I don't tell them what to do. I say, well, then what do you think you should do based upon what you know? And they come up with their own plans. That keeps people in these programs. And so from my perspective, these dietary studies, the real key isn't whether we can get people to follow diets. The real key isn't whether they're going to lose weight. One of the things we didn't discuss is that the inflammation theory on heart disease. I joined American Heart in 1976 as the youngest person in any of those positions.
Nice.
And then I was on the cholesterol education faculty, and I was on the committees that rewrote the cholesterol numbers.
Oh, okay.
And what was painfully obvious by the mid-1990s, was that cholesterol itself was not explaining the problem.
Right.
If it did, we'd have had the answers to this already, and we wouldn't be dealing with these issues. And so what I did is that I sat down and I looked at all the different pieces of information that other people were contributing, not just cardiologists, but internists, family practice doctors, OB-GYNs. I looked at physicians in other countries, and then I looked at other types of scientists that were contributing, and I came together with this inflammation and heart disease theory.
Okay.
And it's changed the field, because in 1995, when I tried to present it, it was just ignored. In 1999, it became part of a textbook in cardiology, and in 2004, when I was on 2020, by the end of the night, everybody was an expert on inflammation and heart disease, except they really weren't.
Right.
What they forgot was, and didn't quite get out of the whole thing, was that what I said was, if we look at all these different factors, they produce heart disease to varying extents in different people. So your genetics and my genetics and your husband's genetics and the lady over there behind the bar's genetics are all different from each other.
Completely, yeah.
And the environment, the stuff that goes into our body,
Right.
whether that's food or medicine or smoke or pollutants or you name it, is the environment in our body. Every one of us react differently to that environment. So that
Very true.
the studies, particularly diet studies, that look at a change in your weight, or a change in your cholesterol, or a change in your CRP or your homocysteine, or whatever blood test we're looking at, are completely meaningless.
Right.
Because one of the studies that we did publish was we compared the changes in these blood tests over time to changes in disease. And it turns out they don't match. So yes, the theory is still correct in that these are the things that promote disease, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure. But just measuring the changes in these blood tests, or just measuring if somebody's weight changes, does not tell you if the person's getting better. So when people use these as the markers to say, go use this diet or that diet or this medication or that medication, they're really not measuring or looking at what we're talking about, which is heart disease or breast cancer. And that brings us back to why this test is so important. It's the first ever quantitative, which means it measures changes in heart disease and cancer. And because it can measure it, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about diets or drugs or surgery or whatever. It will tell you whether you're getting better or worse. And my major argument right now in the community is to do a diet study. There are lots of people who don't like the diet studies that I've done, and I get that.
It's a diet
They're
study.
they're not happy with the outcomes, which is kind of funny because if you look at my last name, it's Fleming. It comes from Bloemingen. We're Norwegians. We're Vikings.
I love the Vikings. Good people.
Rollo was a descendant. I'm a bloodline relative of his.
That's awesome.
We went around the world. We colonized. We set up trade routes. Boys and girls, if you look at Fleming Steakhouse, that's a relative of mine.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
If you look at...
Yeah, my husband calls me the Viking. That's one of my nicknames from the husband. Is he calls me his big Viking bitch. I'm a big woman. Anyway, yes, I was. I'm actually blonde. In real life, I'm blonde. Everybody thinks I'm either German, Norwegian, Swedish.
Right.
finish, something like that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, if you look at me when I was in 6th grade, we talked a little bit earlier about my acting, singing.
Yeah.
In 6th grade, I was a soprano with blonde hair, blue eyes
Nice.
for the
Me
city
too.
choir.
Well, I have green eyes now, but
There you go.
it changed.
When I returned from summer vacation in 7th grade, my hair had turned black. I was shocked. My eyes.
Isn't it crazy though when your hair changes like that? Like mine got dark as I got older, and I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah, it was, despite all the jokes about blondes,
Yes.
I liked my blonde hair.
Me too.
So when it turned black, and then my voice dropped in the summer, my eyes are still blue. If my eyes had turned another color,
mine went green. Huh?
I probably really freaked out. But
Sure.
I don't even know how we got on this conversation.
It's just fun. It's just fun sometimes to go off target.
Yeah. But that was, so I really got lost for that. Anyway, those are fun years. And then the last few years as I've been out here in California, I've started acting again, so to kind of bring us that direction. And a shout out for Marissa Harba Durant, if she's listening. Marissa is my acting coach.
Nice.
And to Jules Avelli, who made this interview possible. Jules is a celebrity journalist.
Yeah, she's cool.
Who has really
She hit me up. Yeah.
extended out to make people aware. And, I've been very blessed. Hollywood is really, I think you either belong in LA or you don't belong in LA.
Amen.
And
Amen
I'm
to that
originally
one.
from Iowa, but I'm very comfortable in LA, and I'm very comfortable in Hollywood. It really feels like home. And, one of the interesting questions I've had to deal with some people is I don't think they take the patent as seriously, the scientific part of me as seriously because I'm an actor. And they go, well, you're an actor, you can't possibly have any science background or do anything like that.
Yeah.
And I really want to say, have you watched the lady, what's her name, Sheldon's wife on Big Bang Theory? She's a neurobiologist.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of PhDs that are also actors.
Oh, wow.
We didn't cut our brain out to be actors. In fact, to be really good actors, you have to have a really good brain.
Yeah. Yeah, because you have to learn lines. You have to learn direction. You got to know how to convey different emotions. There's so many things that go into acting that people don't realize. There's a psychology to it as well.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which it makes people like you and I, who are math and science majors, maybe a little more adept at certain things like that.
Well, Marissa, I've had a number of acting coaches, and most of them have looked at me and said, you're way too much in your head. Marissa Harba Durant, my acting coach, is the only one who's ever looked at me and said, that's your strength. I was like, there you go.
Right.
Thank you. And some days I wonder how she tolerates some of the things that I do. But she's a very good acting coach and utilizes those strengths. But, the key to acting is not to act. That's what people don't understand.
Oh yeah, because it's forced.
It's forced. And
Yeah,
it's
it can't be
painful to
forced.
watch.
Oh God, yeah.
And you go, well,
Hideous.
there's 3 hours of my life I won't get back, or a half-hour show. But acting is about simply, yes, you have to memorize lines, and you have to figure out what you're doing. And for every minute that you see on TV, we probably put in 60 minutes.
Oh yes, film, yeah, I do background.
And those scenes that you think that you see that we do once, we probably do those 20 or 30 times most of the time.
Oh no, totally. My daughter was an actress. I did 6 months with her on set constantly at different TV shows. And she was in a movie, and I've done some background acting myself. I do the TV shows where they tape and they tell you got to stand up, and then you got to sit down, and then you got to clap, and then you got to laugh, and then you got to this, that, and the other thing. So it's just about just following direction. It's really not that difficult, but I want to get more into actual acting. You know what I mean? I've always wanted to do that. And do you have any advice for people like us? I know you're just getting kind of started yourself, but. What kind of roles have you done, and what kind of advice would you give to people, coming out here, especially trying to get into something like that?
Well, I think the first question I would simply do is ask you, why are you wanting to be an actor? If you're wanting to be an actor because you're looking for fame and stardom,
you're not going to find it.
Please don't.
That's a very tiny percentage of people who actually make it like that in this industry. So you should go into it because you love to do it.
Right.
I did stage acting and musicals and things like that in like junior high school, stuff like that. And I was in choir and I did theatrics, all that stuff. It's fun.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun,
Yeah.
but you can't take it too seriously, and it can't. I mean, unless you're coming into it for the wrong reasons, it's not going to work. Because if you're just going to think, oh, I'm just going to make it, and I'm just going to be the next whoever, Justin Bieber or somebody, whoever. You just not everybody gets discovered like that, and they need to be prepared for that harsh reality that they might never get discovered, or they might never get past being a bit, side actor, So I see what you're saying in that sense. Don't be too much about it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you really have to. The reason why I do acting is an outlet for me.
It's fun.
It's fun. It absolutely is. And for me, acting offers a mechanism for me to get people to think about something that they normally would not think about. Now, yes, I do comedy stuff. In fact, there's a 6-part series called Adversity that I was called to be, quote, the gray-haired man. I didn't even get a name. The gray-haired man. And every time I was doing the scenes, the director kept saying, can you not do that like Chandler? And I had to say, I know I'm supposed to have seen Friends, but I really haven't. And so during the break, I had to go look up who Chandler was and see the
Chandler
scene.
Bing.
There you go.
Chandler Bing.
But I couldn't. It was the only way to do the actual scene.
Right.
So it can be to get people to relax, allow them an opportunity to regenerate themselves so they can go back into the world, or it can also be to make people think about scenes. So I've done a lot of very interesting scenes, and it's always with the intent of getting people to think about things. I have been a father who molested his teenage daughter, and that was probably the creepiest film that I ever did.
That would be really weird.
And it was a very interesting audition process where the young lady who was my daughter and I had to go in together and talk to the director and producer and explain why we wanted to do it. And the answer was, there are girls that are literally molested by their parents.
Yeah.
And unless you do this scene properly, to make people think about it, you won't raise the discussion about it.
Right.
And I got, as a result of that, I mean, the people that were running it behind the scenes were worried that maybe I was a really terrible person. And the director had to emphasize to people, no, you've got to meet this guy. He's actually very friendly.
It's just a role. People need to understand that it's just a role. Jack Nicholson isn't really fucking Batman. You see what I'm saying? They can understand that. Separate the person from the role they're playing.
Right.
You're an act. If you're that good of an actor that I know it's a creepy subject matter in the sense of playing somebody like a father or a stepfather who has molested their child or is molesting their children in a TV show or movie. That would be very difficult, and I can see how that would be a really hard role for someone to play, especially when you're nothing like that. You have to go outside your comfort zone, and you have to come out of your character to become another person.
Right.
It's like Johnny Depp. He becomes each one of his roles. When he played the Mad Hatter, he was the Mad Hatter.
Right.
When he plays Jack Sparrow, on the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, he is Jack Sparrow.
Right.
You really believe that this person is that person.
Right.
That is how powerful acting can be. And not everyone has that in them. You know what I mean? Some actors, and I hate to use George Clooney for an example, but George Clooney is George Clooney in every effing movie that he does. Right. There's no derivation. He is just him playing some role.
Right.
He doesn't stand out to me like a Jack Nicholson or a Johnny Depp or a Tom Hanks. They become their roles. They really do the work and put in the research. And do you find that you're more of that type of actor, that you really research the role and try to really put in, I know that would have been a really difficult role for someone like you to play, especially as a parent yourself, and I mean, do you have daughters yourself, or do you just have your son?
Oh, I have a daughter and 2 sons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's the only role that I won't tell people how I got to where I was at, but I will tell you that when I auditioned for the role, just the auditioning of the role, I then went to my acting class that night, which is a 3-hour acting class. I had not recovered physically and emotionally from that until the end of that acting class. That's how emotionally draining it was. But I got the role from the same people a month and a half later to be a commander for a police squad for a SWAT negotiation of a man and woman in a hotel room, and he was holding her hostage and she was pregnant. They offered me that role, and they didn't even ask me how I would play the role. I mean, I showed up on set and I said, well, wait, where's the director? We haven't talked about this. But I got it because they had seen what I had done in that other film. And I said, here's the way that I see this. This is this hostage negotiating captain is going to come on set, and he's going to talk to this young man like it's his son. Because the way that I see our police having really good responses to people is having that type of compassion and care. And I said, I'm going to approach this kid like, he's my son, he's made a mistake, but we all make mistakes, and we'll work through it. We just don't want to make it worse. Wow. And the director looked at me and said, wow, that's it.
Perfect, that's it.
So that was the exact opposite of personalities within 2 months for 2 sets of films as a result. But I do a lot of research. I mean, I have 3 films that are coming up this year that I'm going to be in. One is a Commissioner Parker with Vice Squad with Kevin Kellum. Another one is Yura, which is a demon angel.
Wow.
And
that'd be badass. I want to see that one.
Conspiracy Child.
I want to see that one.
And that is with Melissa Tipton is responsible for that one. And then the third one is the one that I probably have given the most background to, and that is Carl Ernst Croft. And that is by David Brian Perkins, and the name of that is Hitler's Astrologer, and Croft is Hitler's astrologer. So when you ask about the amount of detail, I spent a huge amount of time studying this man. And
that's historical.
It's historical. Yeah. It's the real life story.
Yeah.
It is understanding what he thought and how he got there, and putting myself into that role. So, yes, I do not ever want anybody to look at 2 roles that I've done and go, well, that's just Fleming doing 2 different roles.
Right.
I want them to be lost. I want them to not be able to imagine anybody else being in that role except me.
Right.
Marissa's actually had me do, for scene studies, the Joker.
Oh, yeah.
And I will tell you that I can get very intense in the Joker role.
Wow.
And there is no doubt in my mind, because of the way that I do that, to get into that role and do it, I get what happened to Heath Ledger. I get it. There is no doubt in my mind. If you stay in that role too long, and you have to learn how to get into those roles and exit out of those roles.
Well, right, to be back to yourself.
Right, to get back to yourself. And that's a process. But if you're going to do it right, I think, in my opinion, you have to do it that way. You have to know what the people are. You have to think. You have to get into their minds, and you have to become that person. The only thing that I carry with me are the lines that somebody else has written. And I go through those literally 100 times before a film. Because it has to just be, this has to come out of my mind. And I'll tell you, the favorite place that I rehearse lines is walking down the street. So if you see me walking down the street and it looks like I'm muttering to myself, I
practicing
am.
Lines.
I'm practicing lines.
You know who you look like to me? Did you ever see that? I don't know if you ever watch horror movies at all, but back in the 80s they had the movie series Phantasm. You remind me of one of the main characters on Phantasm. I love those movies. I think they're badass. But you know, what I mean, like you look like you could have been the evil like doctor in those, like, you know, wearing the lab coat and stuff.
Right.
That would have been crazy. Now, as we wrap up the interview, what would you say to people about getting, you know, screened for cancers and getting all this stuff that they need to do? I mean, how long down the line do you feel that you're going to get the patent? Like, I mean, you already have the patent, right? Now, is it being used in practical? Like, is it being used right now, or is it still pending?
Right. Well, it's been used in several places to verify it, and the patent is there. We've already started licensing on it. In fact, we've licensed the first university already, and I have decided that there's major things that I want to see happen with this. To begin with, we're only going to license it to university medical centers. Because this is where the physicians are trained, and this is where I think I have an obligation to help pay back to the system. I want to reduce some of the costs for medical students going by helping provide some of these tests for these hospitals, and I want them to have it to teach the young physicians. We're actually going to give this test away to one university medical center that we just notified people about yesterday, over the course of, you know, the next several weeks to month, however long this takes. And the other thing is that this test has a very specific component written into the license. Now, I come from a family where my father was a carpenter, my mother was a homemaker. Very smart woman. Very smart woman. My grandmother was a one-room school teacher.
Wow.
So I come from a family who believes it's important to give back, and also recognizes that not everybody has a lot of money. So the people that have been trying prior components to this test bill for this test at about $1,500 to $2,000 a piece. That is completely unacceptable to me. This test has been, because I developed it and did not allow the pharmaceutical companies to have control of it, is capped at $350 to $400 a person. The other stipulation is this: anybody who has this license has to, it's not an option, they have to provide this test to any patient who wants this test, independent upon whether they have insurance or can pay for it. They can bill them for the materials, which is $50, but nobody can be deprived this test.
I like that.
Period.
I like that. That's a good aspect that you put into that. It's good that you wrote those in.
It's mandatory. This test was designed to help people answer the questions and to take away the guessing and the fear that exists. And so I've already, last year, you know, people want to know why they don't know about it more than they already do. And the reason for that was that people tried to steal it while I was developing it. Some very well-known people. And so I just simply went quiet. Last year we published more than 20 papers in peer-reviewed medical journals on the different aspects of this patent. And I presented it at 7 different conferences throughout the world. I already have, a couple of days ago, I agreed to present it in Dubai, in Chicago, and San Francisco later in the year. I have a conference down in Florida, a nuclear conference in April, and I have another conference somewhere in May that I have to look up. I don't remember where it's at. But so people are becoming very aware of it very fast through the help of people like yourself presenting it so that people hear about it, through all the multiple publications, through our going to the conferences now for the doctors. But letting the general public know about it is key, and the website that we have out there so that people can go look at material on it.
So what is, as we wrap up, what is your, where can people find you, like your website, what are your social media sites, things like that, so people know where they can find more information about this product and about, you know, you and what you do?
Right. I wish I remembered the name to the website, because it's something like, it's a Wix website.
Oh,
it's,
one of those.
One of those. So I apologize for that. I am on Facebook. Richard Maximus Fleming, and then parentheses Fleming, which is the ancestral name. I'm on IMDb.
Yeah, I found your page. Yeah.
And I'm also on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Those are the primary sites that I have available.
You need to get some Instagram going on, man. Get some Instagram. Get those pictures up there, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, we have been doing an interview today with Dr. Richard Richard Maximus Fleming. I want to thank you so much today for being here with us on Jenny's Real Talk on the Block. And this is going out to iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Sonos, Google Play, Amazon Alexa, and Spotify.
Wow!
So you're getting this word's getting out on many sites, and that's a good thing. Thank you so much for being with us today. We've been here today with Dr. Richard M Fleming. He is a doctor. He has a law degree. This man is everything, and he's an actor. Like, he's becoming famous in movies and TV shows and stuff. So be on the lookout for this guy. Seriously, be paying attention, and especially answer the screening test to let people know that this is low income. You know, it's going to be for people who actually are low income and maybe don't have the greatest insurance. It'll be for people who can maybe afford it more. And it's a good thing that you didn't let the pharmaceutical companies get a hold of this, because they would have maxed the hell out of this and made it go so expensive that no one could afford it, and except for rich people, of course. And I want to thank you for that, for us little people out here in the world. Thank you for helping us.
I'm more than grateful for everybody's help who helped contribute to it. And yeah, I can't imagine a different way of doing it. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Hippocratic Oath. And you don't get it from the Hippocratic Oath, you're not going to get it. But medicine is not a business.
Right.
I've had so many
Shouldn't
people.
Be.
You know, I will leave you with one really strange comment at the end of the whole thing. I remember in medical school being asked how many people thought if somebody came in the emergency room and they needed emergency care but they didn't have insurance, how many of us thought that they should be seen? 176 medical students in my medical school class. 17 of us raised our hands.
Oh.
That's not the general practice of most physicians. That was a skewed perspective at the time. Most of the doctors that I have met and worked with are very adamant that patients who come in to be seen need to be seen.
Yeah.
We don't bill people. We're not focused on the money. Seriously, we are about taking care of people.
And that's how it should be.
That's how it should be.
That's how it should be. And it'd be nice if more companies, more doctors, more hospitals followed that practice. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Fleming, for being here with us today. But we have bands about to come on, so I think they're going to be noisy and stuff. Anyway, thank you so much for being here today with us and doing this interview and helping get the word out about your product. And, it could maybe save some lives. So thank you so much, and I guess we're out of here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. That was good.